So this week I was going to give a talk about minimum viable product and how organizations could leverage the principle of delivering just enough functionality to satisfy a business outcome to enable them to accelerate learning and accelerate their digital transformation journey and get the most out of their data and technology enabled opportunities. But the more I thought about it, and especially in relation to the talk I gave last week around bridging the digital skills gap, I started to think about how people learn, how organizations can take those lessons, and whether Agile is the right methodology to enable them to use those lessons to make real choices about their direction. Because I think organizations can implement a minimum viable product, but unless there is a mechanism for them to collect lessons, to collect insights, and feed those insights back into their development stream to make real choices around what they're going to do, then a lot of the benefit of minimum viable product is distilled away. So the important factor about a minimum viable product is not the fact that you can deliver capability, it's the fact that you can learn by doing and learn through experience to help drive your development journey forward. So today I'm going to talk about Agile learning. I'm going to keep going with the theme around organizational development and people learning, because I think Agile fails in the people component. Agile really does not support people development, it does not support organizational learning, and it's very centered around technology, but we know it's people, process and technology as part of our digital transformation journey. So we have to think about how do we develop process and our people alongside our digital technology and our capabilities. So today, as I say, I'm going to talk about Agile learning. I'm going to talk about how organizations can support Agile learning for their people alongside the Agile development of their technology. My name's Chris Buxton and I help organizations make the most of their data and technology enabled opportunities. So one of the big issues I think with Agile is it came out of the technology world. It's all centered around how do we improve our delivery of software developed product. And it's about how do we create a better relationship between the business and the development team so that we can gain a better understanding of the need and a better understanding of the outcome we're trying to achieve. And everybody aligns better and we get improved communication through that mechanism. And it talks about an iterative and incremental way of developing software through a series of iterations, which can be changed and adjusted based on changing requirements along the way. But what informs those changing requirements? Because at the same time, if we think about technology as something that evolves over time, our people and our process evolves over time along with that. But Agile doesn't take into account the need to evolve process and people at the same time. It's largely silent, and I think that's why we end up in those circumstances where we have a model that a lot of people call Water-Scrum-Fall, which is effectively just an implementation of Agile process within a traditional Big Bang waterfall delivery model. And I think it's that thinking around Agile that is causing a significant number of failures of Agile. Because what it's driving is organizations bringing in consultants to train their people in Agile and to mentor and support them. But they're driving a thinking that Water-Scrum-Fall is okay. And through Water-Scrum-Fall, you can call yourself Agile. And the components within a Scrum methodology or SAFe or any of these Agile methodologies are optional, and you can drop the things you don't want to do. And invariably, the things that get dropped are the ones that enable organizational learning. So it reinforces this Water-Scrum-Fall model. I think the biggest thing that organizations have to do in all of this is get rid of Water-Scrum-Fall. So when people start to talk about Agile, they start to talk about the difference between incremental and iterative development. So one of the diagrams they use is this, the Mona Lisa, the development or the painting of the Mona Lisa. And in incremental delivery, they will talk about breaking the painting down into subcomponents, subsections. Each of those sections are delivered at time, and then they add up to produce the whole picture. In this model, you don't get any benefit until you've delivered the whole picture. But you're able to break it down into smaller digestible chunks, so there is a benefit from that incremental delivery. Iterative delivery, they describe as an increasing quality of the product. So rather than breaking it down into components as in incremental, it's broken down into areas of functionality with greater detail and increasing quality as you go through the development process. Now, the belief in doing it like this, and certainly the Mona Lisa representation, I think is a great example of Water-Scrum-Fall, because that is exactly it. From the outset, the deliverable product is still the Mona Lisa. Yes, you could stop at the outline sketch, because in minimum viable product terms, the outline sketch is a minimum viable product that is a picture of a person. But the reality is you couldn't hang that on the wall in a gallery. You couldn't really use that for any meaningful benefit for an organization. You get the benefit largely when it's a complete painting. But all of the decisions around the underlying structure, the subject matter, the detail, the background, all those other components, the decisions around that are all made early in the life cycle. They're all made right up front. So if you were suddenly to get halfway through the painting and say, well, I've realized I don't like portraits. I want the Haywain by Constable. That model, that iterative model as described through the Mona Lisa concept, is not possible because you couldn't change tack to such an extent. That's why I think this is a really great illustration of Water-Scrum-Fall. It is a waterfall delivery packaged up to look like iterative development. Another model to look at though is the car, and I think this gives us a very interesting analogy so that we can start to think differently about how people develop and how people learn through the development cycle. So in the incremental delivery, we start with the wheels, then we add the chassis, then we add the body and the engine, and then finally putting the roof on. So it builds up the picture. The final solution was defined right at the start as being the car, and all of the stages were necessary to deliver that final product, and you got the benefit at the end. In iterative development, this example talks about moving through the different stages, so starting with a skateboard and then moving up to a scooter and then to a bicycle and then a motorbike and finally arriving at the car. And I think this is a far better analogy for iterative development, because what it's representing is that at each stage you're realizing the product that you're developing is the wrong product. So you're changing journey, you're changing direction, and you're making choices on what you need at the end. And I think the classic Henry Ford quote that if he'd asked the public what they needed, they would have said a faster horse. And in this case, if you go to the customer right at the start and ask them what they need, they would ask for a skateboard. And in Water-Scrum-Fall models, you would build a really great skateboard and you would deliver that, because in a Water-Scrum-Fall model, there isn't the opportunity to change tack as there is in a real iterative learning model. So how to get started on this agile learning journey? I think the iterative development representation around the car does give us a steer here, because at each stage there has to be a learning activity where an organization or a series of individuals can take delivery of a product, can use it in their real world scenario, gain experience and provide feedback to the development process to better inform the need and better develop their products for the future. So organizations have to think about that and how they build that into their digital transformation journey, how they can incrementally deliver capability to that organization so that people and processes can be developed alongside the technology and iteratively develop. And as people gain more skills, understanding, they can better understand opportunities that can be then fed back into the development pipeline as new ideas and initiatives to be executed through their agile delivery method. But what we want is to enable learning. We want to enable people to incrementally learn about their new technologies, their new opportunities and new capabilities. Alongside that, one of the important aspects is to open up communications within an organization. So we know from the talk I did last week about bridging the digital skills gap that 70% of knowledge that people gain is through experience. A further 20% is through relationships, talking to peers and working with others. So they are the avenues we need to open up, because you don't need the whole organization to be experiencing this new technology or new way of working. You need enough people to share that knowledge so that more people can be exposed and more people can learn through experience. And the other side of that as well is looking at micro training opportunities so that people can incrementally create and digest knowledge that they can build up over time. This isn't about a big bang training activity for people. This is actually recognizing that people are individuals, they have individual training needs, and they experience and develop their skills and capability in different ways. You can then also start looking at nudging events or culture hacks and those other small activities that you can do as an organization that starts to reinforce new behaviors and new ways of working and new ideas. But again, they're designed to incrementally grow knowledge and capability, not to do it as a one-off training activity that then just gets delivered before you roll a product out at the end of your waterfall lifecycle. So all of these small learning activities allow people to incrementally and iteratively grow their knowledge and capability that can then influence the process and the technology development that are going on alongside as you're trying to transform your organization. And through all of these agile learning methodologies, what you start to grow is a learning culture that is better able and adaptable to be able to take advantage of new data and technology enabled opportunities, but also are able to feed into your development activities to identify far more opportunities for your organization that can deliver far bigger benefit. My name's Chris Buxton, and I help organizations make the most of their data and technology enabled opportunities.